Welcome in, everybody, to a little bit of a quick reaction post-game recap of Texas and Michigan. I'm your host, Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. By the way, hope you're enjoying the end of this weird, wild, crazy Arkansas-Oklahoma State game. I'll be reacting to that one as soon as it goes final. But I want to talk about that Texas-Michigan game. What a debacle. Texas wins 31-12. But boy, oh boy, what a butt kicking it was for the Texas Longhorns over the Michigan Wolverines. So everybody come on and we'll do some quick reaction. By the way, we'll still do the full episode of the Torres pod on Sunday night. But let's go ahead and dive into the game that you just watched. It was something. Before we get started, should mention, by the way, that we are brought to you by our partners, Callie Puffs, CalliePuffs.com. We appreciate Callie Puff support. Listen, it is that time of year. Bottom line, we're all on the couch. We're all just watching as much college football and NFL football as we can, and we're looking for that healthy snack alternative. Callie Puffs is your answer. So this is a healthy alternative chip. It's made with avocado oil. It's baked. It's not fried. But here is the thing. It is absolutely delicious. Trust me, they sent me a box a few weeks ago, and these things are as good as advertised. They're delicious, but they are also healthy. So it's that time of year. Again, you're on the couch all day watching college football. You're looking for that healthy alternative. Visit CalliePuffs.com. Also worth noting, by the way, they are available on Amazon, Amazon.com. So when you're on Amazon, buying whatever, doing whatever, make sure to check out Callie Puffs. Throw them in your cart. You will not regret it. Tell them Torres sent you. Appreciate your support. By the way, it looks like Oklahoma State has gone ahead and kicked a go-ahead field goal. That is a weird game that we will react to as well. With that said, though, it is a Saturday afternoon. There was a top 10 matchup in Ann Arbor. There is no more time to waste. So let's get to the big game in Ann Arbor. Final score, Texas 31, Michigan 13. And when I tell you that, listen, I thought Texas was going to win, but I thought it could be close. I thought it could be competitive. I thought that it would at least be entertaining. No. Texas dominates the final score. And I'll be blunt, I don't even think that the box score, if you did not watch this game, is fully reflective of just how one-sided this game was. And with it, I really got two questions. Is Texas the best team in college football? But then let's also take it in another direction. Just how bad is Michigan? Because they were embarrassing at home in Ann Arbor. Let's start with the positive of what we saw on Saturday afternoon from Texas. And when I sit here and tell you that looked like as complete of a college football team as I can ever I don't want to say that I can ever remember, but certainly that I have seen in the short window of this season. Texas has it all. And listen, I'll be blunt. Listen, sometimes you got to own something. And coming into the year, I was a little bit more down on Texas than most people. You looked at what they lost off last year's team. Two elite defensive linemen in Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. They lost their entire wide receiver core. And so I sat there and said, I think they're going to be good. I like Quinn Ewers. I like the O-line, but they did lose a lot. They're going in the SEC. It's going to be tougher. But I also said in the preview show on Tuesday night, I said, look, as much as they lost, let's also acknowledge one thing. They dominated Colorado State in week 1. And I know you'd sit there and say, how good is Colorado State really? Well, that was a top 10 pass defense last year. That was a pretty solid, or top 10 pass offense last year, pretty solid offense across the board. So the idea that they just stunk, I just never bought it. And so because of it, I thought Texas was more impressive in week 1, but it was really about week 2, and they were as good as advertised, better than advertised Saturday afternoon in Ann Arbor. In terms of the game, like I said, complete domination, okay? To me, it starts, listen, I know everybody's going to talk about the offensive line. Quinn Ewers, let's call a spade here. I always liked Quinn Ewers. I don't know that I ever loved Quinn Ewers. I don't know that I ever believed that he was as good as everybody said he was. Even last year, he was really, really, really good. But again, the O-line is elite. You have two elite wide receivers in A.D. Mitchell, in obviously Xavier Worthy. We saw what he did with Kansas City the other night. But on Saturday afternoon, I thought he looked like as good of a quarterback as there is in college football. It wasn't just that he finished the game with a really nice stat line, right? You go back and look at what he did. He finishes 24 of 36, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. What impressed me most was just the poise and confidence. And he looked very much like a third-year starter under an elite head coach and an elite play caller in Steve Sarkisian, okay? You look at what he did. First of all, first series of the game should have been a touchdown. It wasn't, whatever. But everything else, just think about what we saw. A guy that could step up in the pocket, a guy that stepped back in the pocket, a guy that knew when to buy time and knew when to get rid of the football. And so when you look at what he did, I just thought he was as poised and as confident as you could possibly hope for if you are a Texas fan, and thought he played as well as I could have possibly expected in what was, at least to start the game, a hostile environment. Beyond that, listen, everybody talked about the O-line. The O-line is absolutely deserving of all of the accolades that they're going to get. We know how good Kelvin Banks is, offensive tackle. He's going to be, we know the stat, first offensive lineman taken in the first round from Texas since the early 2000s, 20 plus years. But I just thought it was entirely, it was entirely just complete domination against what could be, we'll find out, what we thought was the best defensive front that we have seen, that Texas will see all year long with Mason Graham, with Kenneth Grant, with whatever. Texas just completely owned them up front, about 4.5 yards per carry. Obviously, a lot of that was that Ryan Wingo long touchdown run, but Texas's O-line did exactly what it was supposed to do in this game. Finally, to me, it was about the defense. And we're going to get into Michigan. How good are they really? I get all that. But when I look at this Michigan, team and this Texas team, listen, I know that, again, Michigan's offense has a lot of work to do. We're going to go ahead and discuss that here in just a moment. But when I look at this game, what stands out to me is that defense looks so much better and more confident than it did even a year ago. Like last year, the defense, the front was good. Again, Tavondre Sweat, again, Byron Murphy, 2 really good players that really helped out that defense. But this year, all 3 levels got dudes. Listen, Joel Klatt and Gus made a point to give credit to the Clemson transfer, Andrew Makuba. He was flying all over the field. But if you watch the game, it was every single play. Listen, big up front, physical, tough, but then it was also in space. They're making plays all over the place. We know how good Anthony Hill is from a year ago. Again, Joel gave credit, as he should have, to the freshman Colin Simmons, who was flying all over the field. He was awesome, and I think that's what stood out. This Michigan offense might not be very good. I don't think that it is. I also don't think it changes the fact that, to me, that when I look at this Michigan offense, what I saw was an offense that couldn't do anything because Texas was so good up front, but they were also good in the back 7. So if you're Texas, it's a nice win. But I think as importantly, like I said, look at that team that we just watched in this game, okay? Texas, if you're looking at them, and maybe Michigan just stinks. We're going to get to the Michigan side of things in just a half a minute. But when you look at this Texas team, what appears to be the weakness? Because they dominated that game. Again, the final score was 31-12. It could have been much worse. They basically took their foot off the gas. They should have scored on the opening drive of the game. What exactly is Texas's weakness coming out of this game? When I look at it, I don't see anything super obvious. Elite quarterback who will be a first rounder. They've best offensive line in college football. They've restocked the wide receiver room with Golden, with the kid from Oregon State, Silas Bolden, with Ryan Wingo. They got offensive firepower everywhere. Thought it was interesting, by the way, saw Nick Saban actually talking about Billy Napier. He said the number one thing that I look at is, do you have dudes that can make explosive plays? Because if you do, that is how you beat other really good teams. Well, Texas has those guys in spades, okay? So you look at this team, I don't know what the weakness is. And all of a sudden, I sit there and say, well, wait a second now. This was a team that I thought, listen, they're going to be good, but they're going to lose a game or two. They'll lose somewhere along the way once the season starts. I'm not sold. Like, okay, you got to play Georgia at home. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you got to play Georgia at home. Let's see how Oklahoma looks, but that's obviously on a neutral field. But then again, where are the really tough games on this schedule? We've talked about Texas's schedule all offseason long. There is no Bama on this schedule. There is no LSU on this schedule. There is no Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee on this schedule. Texas is going to win a lot of games. So I don't want to oversell it, but big congrats to the Longhorns, a very deserving win. And when I look at that game, like I said, you know what I just saw? I saw the best team in college football, start to finish, top to bottom, 1 through 85, offense, defense, special teams, that I think that I have seen all season long. Again, I don't think Michigan's very good, but we're going to, but I don't think we should dismiss what Texas did in this game. All right, tell you what we're going to do. Take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we will talk the Michigan side of things, because boy, oh boy, do they stink. And we'll obviously get to some of your questions. Quick break. Be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Gonna be back. So do want to go ahead and talk about the other side of the Texas-Michigan game. We just talked Texas. If you missed it, you can go back and listen. But we got to talk about the debacle that was the Michigan Wolverines on Saturday. They lose 31-12. As we just said, it should have been worse. There easily could have been a touchdown on the opening drive. But when I say that I was disappointed in essentially every single thing that I saw for Michigan, probably not a great sign as we go into a tougher Big Ten, where obviously Oregon is on the schedule, USC is on the schedule, and then, of course, Ohio State to end the year. In terms of Michigan, you know what actually stood out to me? So everyone's going to talk about, Davis Warren this, do they have a quarterback, skill position guys, whatever. I was unbelievably disappointed in the Michigan defense, okay? All we've heard all offseason, and by the way, let's even backtrack. Forget the offseason. What was the Michigan program built on under Jim Harbaugh? Blocking, tackling, fundamentals, right? If you watch that game, you looked at that Michigan team, and I know, again, the stats don't totally reflect it. Texas finishes with, quote unquote, only 389 yards of total offense, but again, they let their foot off the gas. That Wink Martindale defense was embarrassing as far as I'm concerned, because again, the entire program was built off blocking and tackling and fundamentals. So what ends up happening in that game? Oh, I don't know. Wink Martindale's trying to all these weird blitzes from every angle. Guys are out of position. The angles that guys are taking on their tackles are a disaster. And so when I was watching that game, I was like, this is a program that was just built on fundamentals, and you have a team where the defense looks completely lost. And I'm not, listen, I watch a ton of NFL, not an analyst. We'll talk about it here and there on the show, but I just bring it up because, when I look at this, this Michigan team, I will tell you, my NFL people were like, dude, Wink Martindale used to be a big deal 4, 5, 6 years ago. His defenses are not good. And that's what I think the most disappointing thing is about Michigan. Because look, Davis Warren, we know is a project. We know they lost a lot on the offensive line, but the defense was supposed to be able to carry this team, right? This was a defense that brings back multiple future first-round picks, Will Johnson, Mason Graham. We know all that. And so the idea that they literally couldn't do anything to slow down Texas, not a good sign. By the way, Texas finishing 10 of 16 on third down conversions. It felt worse. I think some of those, those third down stops were when the game was largely out of control. So to me, that's the big story. It was Michigan's defense more than it was anything else. With that said, offense wasn't very good. And I think that's where I would be a little concerned if I was Michigan. And it's kind of wild to me, right? Because it was funny. I was texting a buddy about this, but in the lead up to the NFL draft, what was all the big talk? Oh, J.J. McCarthy's no good. J.J. McCarthy's overrated. You see that just having J.J. McCarthy, even if he isn't Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, it completely changes the trajectory of the program and the ceiling of the program. And I know they lost a lot off the offensive line. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Lost a lot off the skill position guys. I get that. But part of it to me was just very simply, you had competent quarterback play. And that's the wild part about the Harbaugh era, is that he basically didn't get the quarterback play right for the first 6, 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it was, first six years or so at Michigan. You went from, and Joel Klatt talked about it during the game, but Wilton Spate, Jake Rudock, Shea Patterson, you just can't figure it out. J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy finally come in. And that's where you're like, okay, we have started to figure things out. And all of a sudden you just have competent quarterback play in J.J. McCarthy, and he was more than competent. I get it. But you look at Michigan now, the defense wasn't good enough. But also part of it, as far as I'm concerned, is that quarterback play was absolutely terrible over the course of the first 2 games. And we talked about it last week. Listen, the Davis Warren story is incredible. They talked about it during the game. We get it. We get that he has overcome a lot. He survived cancer. It's an incredible story, all that good stuff. It also doesn't really change the fact that he's probably just not good enough at this level, okay? You watch the game, and he finishes with 22 of 33, 204 yards, 2 interceptions. One of them wasn't really his fault. Colston Loveland has the fumble. I get all that. But it doesn't change the fact that, I just don't think he's good enough at quarterback. So it's wild that you had all this time, didn't figure out the quarterback. You get McCarthy. McCarthy leaves the quarterback situation, is a problem again. And we talked about it on the preview show the other day of when Davis Warren wins the job, it isn't because he is some incredible, awesome, guy. It was because Alex was not good enough in fall camp. They were hoping that he would emerge. They were hoping that he would take the job. He simply does not. And so now all of a sudden you're in a situation where you can't figure out the quarterback situation. You have to go to a former walk-on, and usually that does not work out well. Don't think it helps that right now the O-line just isn't good enough. Part of that might be the Texas defensive front. But, I mean, you go back to even Fresno State. It's not as though they were just moving bodies against Fresno State, about 140 yards rushing against Fresno State. But, again, quarterback play doesn't help. You don't have the quarterback that can make plays with your legs. All of a sudden you load the box. All of a sudden you can't run the football. All of a sudden you see the situation that Michigan in as well. And so I don't want to overreact to just one game, but defense was so disappointing to me. I don't think you have a quarterback. I still think, Edwards and Samaje Morgan and all of these guys are good enough. But again, you got to be able to get them in space. You got to be able to block. You got to be able to do the things that are needed to have success. So with Michigan, I'll be honest, this game does kind of change my feelings on them. Thought they would probably finish 10-2. Maybe Texas is just that good, but thought they would probably finish 10-2. I don't know that I feel that way anymore. Oregon's really good. USC, I think, is better than people think. And if USC plays defense like they did the other day, they're going to give Michigan fits because we know they can move the football. Ohio State to end the year, we know the deal. All of a sudden, I think there's just a lot of games on this schedule that look like, okay, Michigan, it could go either way. I don't know that I feel like they could go either way anymore. So I don't want to spend too much more time talking about this. There's a lot of games on. There's going to be a lot to react to, but just want to share some quick thoughts on the Michigan Texas game. It was a disaster. Do me a quick favor before we get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure that you are subscribed. Also, make sure to rate the show. Go ahead, give us 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. We will be back soon, reacting in real time. Appreciate everybody joining us. We will be back. If we do not do any more reactions today, we will definitely be back